de las experiencias de mujeres que han llegado a puestos directivos y los compartamos con todas aquellas que aspiramos a llegar. La verdad es que cuando empecé a hacer la presentación y bueno, pues mi percepción era que se había avanzado mucho en el mercado laboral, en el tema femenino, ¿no?, de la incorporación de las mujeres. Si echo la vista atrás y pienso en mi madre, que bueno, era muy raro que una mujer, una vez que tenía hijos, siguiese trabajando, era anecdótico, no algo natural como pasa ahora mismo, pues pensaba que las cosas habían cambiado mucho. E incluso cuando pienso en cuando se incorporó mi hermana al mercado laboral, que tiene 9 años más que yo, y cuando me he incorporado yo. También es cierto que quizá he sido una afortunada porque desde mi entorno familiar, a los compañeros que he tenido trabajando, mis jefes, etcétera, siempre me han tratado como una igual. Pero también es verdad que cuando me puse a preparar y a buscar cifras acerca de cuál era la situación real laboral en España, me di cuenta de que quizá no habíamos avanzado tanto, y sobre todo en un mundo que está cambiando a un ritmo despiadado, ¿no? Si bien es cierto que el 60% de los universitarios en la actualidad son mujeres y entramos al mercado laboral en igualdad de condiciones, a medida que vamos escalando en los puestos directivos, el número desciende dramáticamente. En cargos funcionales hay un 19% de mujeres y en miembros del Consejo de Administración tan solo en torno al 5 y el 8%, con lo cual todavía queda mucho por andar. Mirando un poco por sectores, la verdad es que no hay ningún sector en el cual nos acerquemos ni de lejos al 50%, que tendría que ser lo normal. Pero también, quizá por mi deformación profesional, ¿no?, pues el sector financiero es el que me llamó más la atención. Solo un 12%, que son las mismas cifras que en el sector industrial. Y la verdad, creo que nosotras sabemos bastante más de ahorro y de inversión que de PVC o de materiales industriales, ¿no? Entonces, la verdad es que me chocó demasiado. En cuanto a áreas funcionales, pues sí que es cierto que tanto en marketing como recursos humanos, como legal, el número de mujeres aumenta. Pero también lo es que el porcentaje de personas que llegan a consejos de administración que están en negocio es más alto que en los puestos más, pues por así decirlo, de generales de la empresa. ¿Por qué necesitamos un cambio ante esta situación? Pues por supuesto es una cuestión de justicia social, pero no solo eso. Es un punto también que podemos considerar desde la rentabilidad de las empresas. Primero, el 51% de la población española es femenina. Ahí hay mucho talento que se está desperdiciando, ¿no? Ya lo decía Warren Buffett, que quizá uno de los secretos o uno de los componentes de su éxito era que tan solo tenía que competir con la mitad del talento. Él apoya fuertemente el papel de la mujer. Además, ya no es solo el hecho de tener mujeres, es el hecho de diversidad en general, de hombres, mujeres, distintos sexos, culturas, sectores, áreas de experiencia, porque todo eso enriquece y todo eso es lo que hace que las empresas sean más innovadoras, algo que precisamente pues lo hemos visto, ¿no?, con toda esta crisis, cómo nos hemos tenido que ir reinventando, pero además aumenta la eficiencia, la competitividad y la rentabilidad de las empresas, además de dar un valor añadido, ¿no? Pero es que además, y esto Nespresso lo sabe muy bien, el mayor mercado a nivel mundial no es China, somos las mujeres. El 80% de las decisiones de consumo las tomamos nosotras y aproximadamente el 50% de las decisiones de inversión. Con lo cual, desde un punto de vista de empresa también tiene sentido. Esta diapositiva que veis aquí es un poco controvertida, ¿no? Sí que es cierto que, por supuesto, no hay nadie que sea 100% de un tipo de características ni 100% del otro. Pero sí que es verdad que hay algunas que nos vemos reflejados quizá y en la tradicional definición de liderazgo. Por lo general, las mujeres se tiende a pensar que tienen un liderazgo más democrático, más basado en las relaciones humanas, somos más sociales y más abiertas al cambio y a escuchar. Los hombres, por otro lado, pues quizás son más agresivos, van más directos al grano, menos multitarea y se rigen un poco más por su ambición de llegar al poder que por la construcción de equipo. Ninguno de los dos extremos es el óptimo. El óptimo es el del equilibrio. Hay que llevar a cabo este cambio, ¿no? Pero ¿cómo lo tenemos que llevar a cabo? Pues esto tiene que ser algo educacional, pero además desde que somos pequeños. Yo, sinceramente, creo que no es cuestión de que los chicos jueguen con muñecas y las niñas jueguen con balones. No se trata de eso. Lo que se trata es que los niños tienen Indiana Jones y bomberos y las niñas que tengan pues a Melanie Griffith en Armas de Mujer o una doctora o un juez, y no que la muñeca que le pongan a una niña tenga un carrito de fregar y una tabla de planchar, ¿no? Porque al final este es el mensaje que va calando desde que somos pequeños. Desde el punto de vista de las empresas, pues esto tiene que ser nuevamente en la cultura organizativa y que sea una estrategia, sea algo, un componente estratégico para la misma. Que no haya un departamento de competitividad, de diversidad, que sea algo en lo cual estén involucrados desde las más altas esferas y se vaya educando, además de basar los méritos, o sea, basar el éxito en la meritocracia más que en las relaciones personales o en otras determinadas cosas, ¿no? Porque realmente de lo que nosotros queremos hablar aquí es que lo importante no es ser iguales, lo importante es hacer un buen equipo, ¿no? Entonces, por eso creemos que es por lo que es importante que cada vez haya más mujeres en los consejos de administración. Bueno, por mi parte esta es la introducción, muchas gracias a todas nuevamente y antes de dar comienzo a la charla que tendrá lugar por parte de Anne, Gloria, Silvia e Isabel, vamos a ver un breve extracto del vídeo de Sheryl Sandberg de por qué hay tan pocas mujeres en los puestos directivos. Muchas gracias.
So for any of us in this room today, let's start out by admitting we're lucky. We don't live in the world our mothers lived in, our grandmothers lived in, where career choices for women were so limited. We're in the room today. Most of us grew up in a world where we have basic civil rights. And interestingly, we still live in a world where some women don't have them. But all that aside, we still have a problem, and a real problem. And that is this. Women are not making it to the top of any profession anywhere in the world. The numbers tell the story quite clearly. 109 heads of state, 9 are women. Of all the people in parliament in the world, 13% are women. In the corporate sector, women top C-level jobs, boards, tops out at 15-16%. Numbers have moved since 2002 and are going in the wrong direction. In the non-profit world, a world we sometimes think of as being led by more women, women at the top, 20%. We also have another problem, which is that women face harder choices between professional success and personal fulfillment. A recent study in the U.S. showed that of married senior managers, 2/3 of the married men had children, and only 1/3 of the married women had children. A couple of years ago, I was in New York. I was pitching a deal, and I was in one of those fancy New York private equity offices you can picture. And I'm in the meeting. It's about a 3-hour meeting. And 2 hours in, there's kind of needs to be that bio break, and everyone stands up. And the partner running the meeting is looking really embarrassed. And I realized he doesn't know where the women's room is in his office. So I start looking around for moving boxes, figuring they just moved in, but I don't see any. And so I said, "So did you just move into this office?" And he said, "We've been here about a year." And I said, "Are you telling me the only woman to have pitched a deal in this office in a year?" He looked at me and he said, "Yeah, or maybe you're the only one who had to go to the bathroom." So the question is, how are we going to fix this? How do we change these numbers at the top? How do we make this different? I want to start out by saying I talk about this, about keeping women in the workforce. I really think that's the answer. In the high-income part of our workforce, in the people who end up top Fortune 500 CEO jobs or the equivalent in other industries, the problem that I am convinced is that women are dropping out. Talk about this a lot, and they talk about things like flex time, mentoring, and programs companies should have to train women. I want to talk about none of that today, even though that's all really important. Today I want to focus on what we can do as individuals, What are the messages we need to tell ourselves? What are the messages we tell the women that work with for us? What are the messages we tell our daughters? At the outset, I want to be very clear that this speech comes with no judgments. I don't have the right answer. I don't even have it for myself. I left San Francisco, where I live, on Monday, and I was getting on the plane for this conference, and my daughter, who's, when I dropped her off at preschool, did that whole hugging the leg, crying, "Mom, you don't get on the plane." This is hard. I feel guilty sometimes. I know women, whether they're at home or whether they're in the workforce, that don't feel that time. So I'm saying that staying in the workforce is the right thing for everyone. My talk today is about what the messages are if you do want to stay in the workforce. And I think there are three. 1, sit at the table. 2, make your partner a real partner. 3, look at that. Don't leave before you leave. Number 1, sit at the table. Just a couple weeks ago on Facebook, I hosted a senior government official, and he came in to meet senior execs from Silicon Valley. And everyone kind of sat at the table. He had 2 women who were traveling with him who were pretty senior in his department. Kind of said, "Table, come on, sit at the table." And they sat on the side of the room. When I was in college, my senior year, I took a course called European Intellectual History. I love that kind of thing from college. I wish I could do that now. And I took it with my roommate, Carrie, who was then a brilliant literary student and went on to be a brilliant literary scholar. And my brother, a guy at a polo playing pre-med who was a sophomore. The 3 of us take this class together. And then Carrie reads all the books in the original curriculum, goes to all the lectures. I read all the books in English and go to most of the lectures. My brother is kind of busy. He reads 1 book of 12 and goes to all the lectures, marches himself up to our room a couple days before the exam to get himself tutored. The 3 of us go to the alien dialectic. And I say, "God, I really wish I had really connected John Locke's theory of property to the philosophers that follow." And my brother says, "I got the top grade in class."
Yeah?
Well,
So we're stopping at that point. We're never going to hear the end of it. But now, that's what's called a cliffhanger. So now you're all going to have to go onto YouTube, find the TED Talk, and find out what happened next. Anyway, Anna, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for hosting this. This is the first in what we hope will be a number that we'll have across the continent here in Spain, of a series that we started in the UK about 4 years ago, trying to connect women who are on boards with women who would like to be on a board, trying to connect women across silos through the public or the private sector, the corporate or the not-for-profit, and generally just trying to create better networking between women who have the potential to go on and show leadership, whether it's within a large company or at the top of a large company or any other kind of organization. Because one of my big frustrations, having been working now for almost 30 years, has been that the shape of the pyramid has got broader at the bottom in the time that I've been working. And we saw the statistics here in Spain. That's mirrored just about everywhere across the developed world. More than 50% of university graduates in most of the developed world now are women, and they're doing better, performing better. But the shape at the top hasn't really changed very much. And it doesn't matter whether you look at Spain or Italy or the US or Australia or the UK, it still looks pretty much the same. So what we're going to try and do over the next hour or so is explore some of the reasons for that, get some different perspectives about what we can do about it, and hopefully hear from some of you, either your suggestions or your thoughts about things that could be done that aren't being done. So that's our starting point. What I would like to do, just to set a scene for everybody, is just go round our panellists and ask them just to give a couple of opening remarks about who they are. I'm sure you know all of them, but nonetheless, a little bit of a background, who they are, what their career path has been, and giving a little bit of a flavour of where their perspective might be on some of the things we're going to go on to explore. So, Gloria, starting with you.
So my name, I don't think
it works magically.
It works? Okay.
As soon as you start speaking, it works.
My name is Desde Aberdeen, and I work now for Banking there. Actually, I studied business Business Administration in ICADE. I was the first promotion of a E4, so I made my studies half in the UK and half here in Spain. And I started in audit and consultancy, and I ended up in finance. And I'm in banking now for 13 years, 12, 13.
Okay. Sylvia?
I'm Silvia Leal. I work for the European Commission as an advisor for the deployment of the digital agenda. I also work for IE Business School as academic director for the digital innovation and information technology programs. And I'm also the writer of the book you have in your bags. And it's about why we are so profitable, because the female professionals are very profitable, and there are a lot of numbers about that. We'll talk about those later. And it's also about how to get the 100% of each person.
Okay. Isabel?
Well, my name is Isabel Linares. I was educated in England, got my law degree from Madrid University, from Complutense University, became a flight controller before joining IBM, where I worked for 17 years, both here in Spain and in IBM Europe in Paris. I was then headhunted, age 39, to join Sanitas, where I worked for 13 years. I was the deputy managing director, that's the number 2 job of the group, and also CEO of the nursing home business. In 2007, I was appointed CEO of Telemadrid, where I stayed for 4 years, and now I divide my time between consulting at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I run a public sector centre at the IA Business School.
Fantastic. And Anna, just give everybody a little bit of a colour for those who don't know you quite so well.
Well, it's true that most of you know me quite well, but so I don't have to even say my name. But I also studied business administration, and I've been working during my whole career in the asset management sector. First of all, as fixed income fund manager, then fund of fund manager, until I move up into the distribution part of the business, and I joined Aberdeen last year. And well, in between, I combined my professional career with some lecturing and co-heading a master's degree in the IEB.
Okay, so we've got a range. We've got real specialists, asset management specialists, finance specialists, and then we've got what we might call some more generalists. So, Isabel, coming back to you, we've got tiptoeing things going on here. Are we working okay? Are we everything? All the sound. Sound okay? The lights okay? Yes, yes. Everyone can hear at the back? Excellent. And you're listening, which is even better. I always feel that's such a good start to a panel discussion. So, Isabel, coming back to you, an interesting and incredibly varied career that you've had. Did you always want to be a career woman? Did you fall into it? Did you have a role model? How did you set off on this path?
I didn't have clarity about wanting a career until I was in my mid-30s. So initially I began working, I went along, and it's only in my mid-30s when I realized that I want to pursue a career into general management, when I moved from being a lawyer, to go into general management. And that's how it happened.
And what was the trigger for that? How did that switch happen from coasting a little bit to suddenly wanting a career?
I think it was so much more exciting. And then I realized that the higher up you are, the more you can do. And it is so much more rewarding. So I had no doubt about that.
And did you have, within your family environment, did your mother work, for example? Were you following a path that others in your family had gone before?
No, my mother did not work. Now, I am one of 8 sisters. So there's 8 girls in the family. There are no brothers. I don't have any brothers.
Wow.
And so we were educated to, my father always said that the best investment he could make was our education, and that he wanted us to be able to make a choice. He was very concerned about us, or girls at that time, and he was very much a visionary in the 60s, sending us to England, to boarding school, very much criticized for doing that. And he felt that that life has so many turns and that we needed to be able to choose. And if for whatever reason things didn't go right, you weren't married, you had to have, you were unlucky for whatever reasons, you had the possibility of your education and making a life of your own. What I did have clarity on is I always wanted to be independent economically. That was really my drive. My drive was to be independent economically. I didn't want to have to depend on anyone. I wanted to have my own.
Everyone nodding here.
Yes.
So you're nodding on that. Touches to what you said. Did you have a role model? What was the driver for you?
My driver. I had two brothers, and my mom said we should be treated equally. And the truth is that I was more interested in studying, so the three of us got their career, but I got 3 MBAs. So they decided to support me. And I was very lucky. I didn't think of becoming an IT professional, and I got into the market. I got a lot of support from men, and my history is about luck, about being very lucky. I didn't choose.
Do you think we should have to rely on luck for our careers?
I think we need and we should work our luck. That's the point. And we have to be very alert if the luck comes to use it. But I think we should rely on our luck. Yeah.
Gloria, you were nodding as well on that point about independence.
Yes, I think my case is very similar. I think my father also educated me like a man. I mean, in the sense that he gave me the same opportunities as my brother. I don't have 8 sisters, just 1 brother. So, but anyway, and he gave me the same education, and he thought exactly the same. My inheritance is my education, so you have to take advantage of it. And he always taught me that it was very important for me. If I wanted to be free, if you want to be free, you have to be independent. Otherwise, someone else is taking the decisions for you. So this is a driver for me. That has been a very important driver for me.
That's really interesting, because I've done a number of these panels before, and that's the first time that independence point has specifically come out. Actually, I'm wondering, should we move a little closer together? I think we feel a bit distant here. Didn't mean to smash the glasses, but there we go. That wasn't supposed to be. Right, while we're faffing around with the chairs, here's a question for the audience. This point on independence, for how many of you, can you put your hands up, was independence the driver? Hand right up. Yeah, lots of hands going up. That's really interesting. So that's maybe... Have we got broken glass on the stage?
No, it's fine. The problem is the light that is on my head.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you want some sunglasses? You're in Spain. It's beautiful and sunny. You should be used to bright light.
This is too sunny. I can't handle it.
Can we turn the projector off a little bit? Hey, we're getting good at this technical stuff.
We are friends again.
By the time we finish, it'll be immaculate. Okay, right, Gloria, staying with you for a second. There's a whole debate on the back of Sheryl Sandberg's first TED Talk. There was a whole debate that was opened up on the back of it, which was a really interesting one, which was, to what extent do you have to fix the women versus fix the environment? I.e., to what extent is it about women having to lean in, or the extent to which it's about an environment which actually is making it harder for women because of their choices than it needs to be? So, Gloria, any reflections on that?
I think there is still a lot of cultural resistance to women getting to the top. I mean, it's a man's world. It has been a man's world, and you can see that in the organizations, actually. So many times people are not aware of the sacrifices a woman has to make. So in many organizations, they assume that if you want to get to the top, you need to be available at any time, anywhere. And for a woman that doesn't want to give up on being a mother or having a family, that is very, very hard, okay? So, yes,
do you think technology has made it easier or harder?
Technology has made it easier. Actually, at Bankinter we have, we can work at home many times, not all the time, but they make it easy, and you're not required to be on site all the time, which is very, very important. And technology makes it easier, obviously. But you have to travel, so it's not always very easy if you don't want to give up on a family. And I think companies and society has to change a little bit.
Maybe we just need to choose different partners who do more of the home stuff.
Also, yes. Also, yes.
Sylvia, what do you think?
I have a lot of information about the ICT world, and I think we can use it in the rest of the fields. Women think that this kind of positions sometimes are too isolated and not worthwhile. It's too hard to get there, and also sometimes it's even boring.
Boring?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, there's some research that says it's boring. It's not so fantastic as you can see on the films. So I think we have a lot of responsibility, and in this sense, I do think we can have the solution.
So did your research on ICT, was that just in Spain or was that internationally?
It's information coming from the European Commission.
So it's internationally?
Yeah, but also in the book, you can read this, because I did the research also here in Spain. And I get the same results. Isolation, boring and not worthwhile.
Gosh, so we live on the land. And Isabel, you've experience of more than one culture. So you think that within Spain there's a particular angle to this? Or
Well, I think it comes out in the research that we did in PwC 2 years ago when we decided to research into women directives, women executives in Spain. The single most important barrier that was put forward by women and men was working hours. That's the main issue here in this country. We have the most absurd working hours. We work 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and it is something that we have to decide to change. And companies and corporations, some of them timidly, some of them less timidly, but that is the differentiator, I think, in Spain in respect to other countries.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. So, Anna, when you're lucky quite a bit younger than I am. My generation, I suppose, in the UK, Maggie Thatcher, switched on all the time, hard-edged, that was kind of our training ground for the path of successful female leadership. We talk about the millennials having a bit of shift in priorities. Do you see that coming through with younger women like yourself?
At least in my case, I see it. It's true, as Isabel mentioned, that it is the long, never-endless schedule of hours, and it comes from men, because men tend to work because they are not so efficient. I'm happy to say. I'm sorry.
There were a couple of men in the front row here who winced.
I'm sorry. No. They have many other, but it's true that we are much more multitask, and we can be able to do things faster. But and I also sorry to mention, but it is a fact. It's a different gender difference. No, but it's true that, and I was talking about it before the meeting started, that many women in the past tend to be very tough in their role positions, and sometimes adapting a role that didn't fit with their real character when they were out of their professional environment. And I also think that it was because, well, and some of the people here mentioned as well, that they had to fight too much. And in that sense, I consider that in our generation, all of you have done a lot to us, good work. So for me, it is not a question of being anyone but myself, both in my professional and my personal career. And for me, that's the main difference.
Okay. So one thing that I think has changed, and not for the better, over the last 25, 30 years, has been around the way women are portrayed in the media. And actually social media, in some respects, has made it worse, not better. Because what you've seen in some types of social media, sometimes on Facebook, sometimes on Twitter, has been almost misogyny. Things that were culturally not acceptable to say face-to-face or to say on television or even to print in a newspaper were suddenly given a platform through social media that they didn't have before. Isabel, you worked in the media at one stage. How do you see it's changed, and does that echo with you, what I've just said?
Absolutely. The media has a role to play in helping women, in portraying women as a reflection of society. And they don't always do that. I think there are two ways they can do that. One is in fiction. And Spain at the moment is producing an awful lot of fiction. And they can start portraying women in their fiction, executive women, equal opportunities, and with the right characteristics. That's one area where that can be done. And the second is calling on experts. A very small amount of experts that are called are women. You see it, and when they do call it, it's either someone in the nursing or in the teaching. But when they call on an expert, they are men. They're not women. What have we done on this front? We have set forward. We have set up a platform of expert women, Plataforma de Mujeres Expertas. We've only just announced it a couple of months ago. I will send you all the link if you're interested. And that is an agreement we have reached with a number of newspapers and with the Association of Journalists and with television and with the media in general, by which, if they want an expert, here they have an awful lot of them. Because what they say is, we don't call experts, and I know from my time in Telemadrid, when I kept on saying, call so-and-so, they're trying to get women in to be called upon on a daily basis in the news for whatever reason, and they would say, there aren't any. What do you mean there aren't any? There are masses of them. So we have set up this platform, and I think it is already changing the number of experts that the media calls, and they can go in there, and if they want an expert on anything, it's in there. Somebody who's
You've got a room full of them here.
A room full of experts. So please, and it's very rigorous. I'll give you the. You can send them to all of them.
Do you provide training for them? Do you provide media training?
We provide media training. You have to pass a committee, so you have to be an expert on something, and then you have to commit to when you're called. You have to go. You can't say, oh no, I can't go on television, I can't go because I have to go to the hairdresser. No, you have to go. You have to.
I've been involved in something quite similar in the UK, because I used to say to our press department, I'll do one interview a year. That was what. And then I realised actually that women say no much more often than men do. This is something you'll hear from journalists a lot. I don't know if journalists in the room will echo that. But a woman is more likely to say no to an interview request than a man is. Certainly that's what I've always been told in the UK. And the safety in numbers, ladies, that's one of the things that I say. The more women there are speaking up and being experts, the less exposed you feel about it. So that's a really good, helpful, practical point to come out of this. That's very, very good. I want to turn to another slightly controversial subject on which people may have strong views. A very live debate in a lot of areas at the moment, bless you, about quotas versus targets. So I'm going to ask you a question, audience, that I'll just give you a moment to think about it. Hands up if you are in favour of legally binding quotas. Yes, we have one hand here. Just keep it up, two. Yes, no, safety in numbers, keep those hands up. Nobody else tempted? Oh, three. Yes, you see, this is why I always say think about it. Put all three hands up. It's one of these questions. It's like, have you ever had an affair? Nobody ever puts their hand up first of all, and then but after a while the hands. Not that I ever asked that question, and I'm not going to do it. So hands up, who's in favour of targets rather than quotas? Targets. Okay, and the rest of you are really, really wishy-washy. You don't have an opinion. What do you make of that?
Well, I reckon that we come from far away and there is a lot of work to do, but I still don't feel very comfortable with quotas. because discrimination, whether positive or negative, is always bad, I think. And because there will always be the doubt over the woman whether she's there because she merits it or not. So I understand maybe just by information and by targets we won't get very far, but I don't feel very comfortable with quotas. No.
Sylvia?
I don't like quotas, I don't like targets. Quotas has a negative side that is very dangerous. You are there because of the quotas. What happens with the targets? That they are smoke. Yeah. They say, a target, okay, it's fine, but why should I do it? Okay? Yeah. So I agree with her. We need to do something to explain everyone why women should be in the companies, and the reasons is always about the same. It's about money. This is a research coming from the European Commission that proved that 49% of the financial result can be explained by the female talent, and it's empirical evidence. So should female professionals be in the organizations? Yes, of course. Why? Because of the social requirements, no? Because they are profitable. It's about money. This is business. Of course, because this is a social problem. We deserve to be in the organizations, but if we are not there, the talent is not being used, and it's about money.
Okay.
And if someone wants the report, please send me a mail, and you will read it. It's also in the book.
You're also getting all this homework. You thought you were signing up for a bit of a chat and then a nice drink, and then we're making you work. Isabel, what's your view? Quotas versus
but let me
targets.
refute what you're saying, because if that was so obvious, I mean, companies, they want their profits to go up. So if this was so obvious, why would they not hire more women? Why would they not appoint more women? And they are not doing it. The only way we're going to get more women in those top jobs is through quotas. I am absolutely sure of it. There is no other way. Quotas they are controversial. Quotas are controversial. But they have more upsides at this point in time than downsides. If we don't get quotas in this country, the voluntary targets won't work. Our current law, La Ley de Igualdad, the Equality Law, 2007, fixes targets. It says that companies, for listed companies, that companies should try to have 40% women on their boards. 2015 is the deadline. What do we have? 16% at this point in time. We are not a nation, we are not a country that does things if it is not mandatory. We do it if it is mandatory. If it is not mandatory, we don't do it. And I believe in quotas, and I think it is something probably temporary. It will probably be for a number of years, and then when we have that balance, we can take it off again. But I am all for quotas. We did a bit of work on projecting the results of where we are, and took them we projected it into the future, and equality, or parity rather, understood by 40% women, 60% men, didn't happen until the year 2057.
Wow.
Okay? 2057. So, if you have daughters, if you
43 years
have sisters, the only way is quotas. And thankfully, even if you don't believe in it, it will happen. Quotas will be a reality. I figure around 2020, but they will be a reality.
So Anna, let's give you a really nasty question. So, in 15 years' time, you're sitting around the boardroom of a large corporate entity, Bankanter, let's say. You're a director of Bankanter.
I hope to keep on working forever.
Would you mind? Thank you. You'll be doing this in addition to your executive job, running Aberdeen, obviously. Would you mind if you were sitting in that room because of a quota, rather than because you got there without a quota?
I have to say that I have changed my mind during years because I was completely against quotas. I have to say, because I thought, as Gloria mentioned, it is not a question of being there because you have to be, but because of what we were worthwhile and what the added value that we can give. But along the years, I have slightly changed my mind, and I'm more into Isabel's point of view, because I also consider that at some point there has to be someone who's there to represent the minority part of the society, and
even if it's actually a majority.
Yeah, or even if it's actually a majority. But it is not just a question of gender, but also of many other aspects that makes us different. And somehow it is also, I think, why we are so against quotas is because we don't trust ourselves. I mean, if I had to be a quota, I would be very happy to be appointed as the representative of women, because I know that I'm capable enough to show if it was a blinded CV. I don't mind, and somehow if they appointed me, it was because I would be someone that was going to be fighting for them. No matter the time and the first feeling, I would show with my effort and with my willingness to do things that I'm there because I deserve it. So, nasty question, but...
But I think it's interesting because it's like Sheryl Sandberg said, I mean, you can't sit at the table if you're not in the room. And the first thing, I think, is to get more women into the room. And then, then we can... But actually, in a way, I think, Spain may be a little different. I think, in the main, this target versus quota debate has become something of a semantical argument when there is a good direction of travel, which you are seeing in some countries in Europe now. Spain may be the laggard in that, but you are beginning to see movement in some of the others. But on a positive note, so can you think, Gloria, can you think of examples? You work in a very female-led bank, actually. Mm-hmm. Can you think of concrete examples that have worked in your experience in the workplace?
Of women?
To encourage more women to stay at it and rise up through the management structure.
Well, I think first women have to want to take the responsibility. That is very important. Many women just don't want. So women have to want to get there and then find the right environment. And I think it is there where it is very important, the leadership. So who is your boss? How flexible and how much he understands your problems, or she. It was always a he in my case. So anyway, and it's also the policy of the company to make compatible family life and professional life, because many women give up when they decide to be mothers. Because they find it very difficult to make it compatible. So I think it's very important. And another thing is that some women actually stop their career. You don't have to be afraid to stop your career for a couple of years. You can take on afterwards. So that is also something that I actually stopped for 2-3 years, and you just, there is no problem with that. You just have to be sure that that's what you want to do and take it with strength and willingness afterwards.
Okay, so what have you found that works, that has worked?
I think you have to be good, and you have to be very efficient. Why good? If you can prove that a woman can do it very well, you will get the support. Right now, in the ICT field, only 20% of the professionals are women. However, I am the speaker of the ICT professionals in Spain. Why? Because I prove I can do it, and they say, okay, Silvia, we like how you do it, because you do something different and you put passion. Okay, so you have to be good and you have to put your passion there. And the second one is about efficiency. And in my case, I have 2 kids. One is 2 years old, the other one is 3 years old, and I am doing a lot of things. Why? Because I'm very efficient. I focus. And when I have to stop because I want to play with them, I stop and I start working again when they go to bed. So you have to be efficient and organize your life so you can do everything in the best way. So this could be my 2 advices for them.
See, it's interesting, and I echo that, because I've always said I don't run a home, I run a military operation, because you have to be like that. But that does touch on something else, and it goes back to fix the women, fix the environment. So again, this is actually saying women have to adapt themselves to work to this environment. Isabella, should we be thinking more about thinking of diversity not as a representative set of statistics, but actually about how we make an environment that is more inclusive of a wider variety of norms? And how can we do that? How can we think of it not as a diversity issue, but as an inclusion issue, making an environment that is more inclusive?
That's the key, isn't it? How can we make our workplace more inclusive to women? We do things differently, we work differently, we juggle families and work, and there's no doubt that we have to try and get our partners to be real partners. That's one thing, okay? So that's and we have to. And at the moment, the government is running a very, very strong campaign on television, on radio, saying get your partner to be a real partner, por la corresponsabilización, no? Which I think is a horrible word, and I don't know if many people know what it means. But it means
you have to tell it to me. I don't.
Co-responsibility.
Co-responsibility. But they've gone to a technical word instead of saying it. Getting your partner to be a real partner. Helping helping at home, and you have. But I think it is all about changing the culture at the office, trying to make things more flexible, not allowing meetings to be held after a certain hour. So 5 o'clock might be the hour, so you don't have meetings after 5 o'clock. Putting the lights out, like they've done in many companies, they put the lights out at 7 o'clock so that you can't work any longer. Technology is a huge enabler, and here we are constantly trying to adapt women to this male cultural environment, and I think it's about time we start changing that workplace environment to our needs and leadering, trying to get.
Because it's an interesting point, because it's certainly one of the things I see now when our pan-European equity team, for example, seems to have had a baby epidemic, and our pan-European equity team is majority male. They're much less likely now to be seen at the desk after 7 o'clock at night, because they do go home and do bath time. Now, when I was 20-something, no, that just didn't happen. Nobody left to go home and do bath time. Now, and it used to, so we've all got kids. We've all done the kind of juggle thing, and kind of, we're still here to tell the tale, which is good. Is it frustrating for you always to be defined as within, there must be this female issue around family? Because you don't have kids. You're a career professional, you're going through. Is that an annoyance to you?
Yeah, so well, and besides, even more, I've been married for 5 years, so everybody's putting a lot of pressure in my neck, asking whether, and first of all, of course, I'm very, right now I'm very into my professional career, but it is not that the question why I'm not having kids right now. I don't know if I will have them or not, but it will be my decision, and I'm pretty sure that if I decide to have kids, I will keep on progressing, or hopefully I will do my best to progress on my professional career. But on the other hand, it is also something for me. I don't have kids, but I do have a family and I do have a personal life. And sometimes, since I don't have kids, people tend to think that I don't have anything else. No, I have a lot of things. I have my family as well. First of all, I have my husband, but also my parents, my brothers, my sisters, and I also want to enjoy from my personal life. A pure balanced life is a mixture between the two of them, so it is not fair neither to be considered as the never-ending hours in the office because you don't have kids. You know, that I have the right to decide whether I want to have them or not. And not depending on nor my professional career nor my personal, it will be just personal.
I mean, it's quite an interesting point because I have quite a number of girlfriends who are my age or a little bit older in London and other parts of financial services world who don't have children and never wanted children or for whatever reason don't have children. And one of their complaints is that it used to be the woman would get maternity leave and now the dads get paternity leave. And you don't get anything if you're a woman or a man for that matter without children. You never get those weeks off, months off or whatever. And I thought that was an interesting observation in terms about changing the environment. Maybe if everybody had some kind of sabbatical right, whether it was a parental leave or just a home life leave, again, maybe that would make the environment more family friendly because everybody would see that the world doesn't come to an end if you go off on a few months maternity or paternity leave. Do you have paternity leave here in Spain?
Yes.
4 months.
How many?
4 months.
4 months, that's really good. When I started work in the UK, it was 2 days paternity leave. 2
No,
days.
but if I may interrupt, it would also, I completely agree because see, it would also help to people who really want to study something else or to diversify their career, and it would allow also other people who don't decide to have children or cannot or whatever to also try to be more open to different sectors and activities.
Now there was a little bustle of activity there. I don't know if that means somebody has got a really burning and urgent question that they would like to ask at this point. But we will take some questions. So if there is a question anyone would like to ask, now would be a good moment. Otherwise, think of your questions, because I won't allow anybody to go for a drink until you've asked a question. So get thinking about those questions. Does anyone have a question now? Oh yes, we do, here, okay.
Hi, my name is Helena and I have a publishing company. I founded it myself and a startup, which is an IT technology company. Well, I'm a weird person because my partner is my husband. We've been working together for 17 years, but that's another story. So my case is quite strange, let's say. Nevertheless, since I started working as a lawyer a few years ago, not as young as...
Oh, thank you very much. When I started working as a lawyer, I realized, and I'm actually not working as a lawyer anymore because of the schedule, the working hours. I remember I went in at 9 and it was 10 o'clock at night and I was still there. And I said, and I didn't have any kids at the time, but I thought it was horrible. I just went home, had fried an egg, went to bed, woke up the next morning and all over again. My question is, you powerful women from the media, from the educational institutions, or from financial institutions, how can we influence the general opinion, I think it's a culture. You mentioned it at the beginning. I think the problem of working hours is culture in a way. I worked in London, and you can leave the office at 6, and nobody looks at you badly because you do so, as long as you have your objectives done at the end of the year or the month. But here, when I worked as a lawyer, you had to leave after the boss left. The longer you stayed in the office, the better you'd be, and I think it's the other way around. Lucky you that you can work 3 hours from a boat and have your objectives. You can achieve your objectives. So my question is, whether can we influence from our little situation? I have a small company. I'm not powerful. How can we influence and change the culture? Or maybe you, women or men in higher positions, are more powerful. How can we do this to change? I think it's a cultural or general public point of view that we can work from wherever, as long as we achieve our objectives. Thank you very much.
Great question. So basically, what can we practically do around about us to affect the environment to make it better for other women? So who wants to go first? Anyone? Sylvia, go on.
Okay. I do think we all have to do something. Each of us has to do it in his own, has to do it in her own place, okay? I do it with my committees. I mean, when I'm with the CEONet members, when I'm in the European Commission, and I'm not scared That's the point, okay? So we have to do it, and we don't have to feel fear. And if we all do it, we will get it.
Yeah.
And it's also about fear. This is the emotion that is so present here in Spain that is making it very difficult for us to live the crisis. So it's not the time for that. It's the time for passion, for optimism. It's the time for the good self-esteem, and it's the time to fight. So this is my advice.
Isabel, what about you?
I fully agree with you, Sylvia, yes. I think the cultural changes are very, very slow, unfortunately. And so we've began this transition. And what we can do at this point in time is each of us do it in our own sphere of influence. And little by little, I think it will happen. Unfortunately, it is slow, though.
It is.
The
I mean,
change.
Aberdeen is it has the same. It's not quite such a top-heavy pyramid, but it's still, as you rise up. I've got the stats. We don't publish them, but I've got the stats, and you can see we have the same shape. Although we're a bit more flat-topped. We have 4 women on our top-level board, which is unusual. So we're doing better than some, not as good as we might. And it's quite difficult to change everything top-down. Now, I'm talking about a larger organisation rather than a start-up situation, so I accept that it's different. The sort of things that I've tried to do around my immediate team is I have women, and they are mostly women, they're not exclusively women, but mostly women, who do compressed hours, so they do 4 days and 5, who do shift patterns, where a husband works shifts, and so we flexed her hours, so sometimes it's 10 till 6 formally, sometimes it's 8 till 4, and we've given her that leeway contractually. We have part-time and we have job share, and that's all within my immediate area, because my attitude is, well, let's give it a go and see if we can make it work, and if it doesn't, we'll go back and we'll try and work out what would work, but nonetheless, that's the attitude. I think sometimes managers have a tendency to say, oh, part-time could never work, or flexi-time could never work. And my experience is that women who've gone on to part-time, after a certain period of time, go back onto full-time again. Because you realise that your children are rugrats for a very small amount of time, and then they grow up, and actually they go to bed later than you do. They stay up to watch the football on Saturday night, and you're in bed way before they are. So life changes. You go through those different shapes and patterns. So I think that sometimes, and you don't need a company policy necessarily to give you permission to do some of those things. Interesting question, yes?
Sorry, I'd just like to make a comment. I thought it was interesting what you were saying about some women work part-time, then they go back working full-time again. Do you not think that's because, in my experience, and I've seen it with a lot of women here in Spain, they get the option of working part-time when they've had children, but the reason they go back to working full-time is because they find they're taking home so much work anyway, and they're on a reduced salary, that it's not worthwhile accepting part-time, and that's the reason they go back for full-time.
That's not been my experience. I've heard that argument before, and I can believe that is possible. I think, as always with these situations, it can be quite dangerous to generalise. But again, thinking of your responsibility as a manager of other people, you have to manage workloads to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's something that you have to do as a manager.
And if those managers are men?
Well, you get into this...
I'm just commenting on what I've seen here. In Spain particularly, people work part-time, they get the right to work part-time because they've had children, but it ends up being great saving for the company because they're paying them less, but they end up with the same workload.
Yeah,
and they go back after
absolutely.
2 or 3 years of working part-time and working and juggling the kids. It's actually easier to go back and work full-time.
So that may be the case. I don't think anybody really goes back to work full-time who doesn't actually want to go back to work full-time. I mean, people have a choice. They can leave or not. If you end up working for a bad manager, that you have a choice. And I think women can sometimes, this can be true of men as well, I don't like generalizations, but one has a choice about staying with that person or not. I mean, we're all employable. We all have portable skills. Yeah. How much should you tolerate, and how much should you try to change, and how much should you say, actually, well, if I've got to work for a time, I'm going to work for a better manager than that and move on. So, we have power as well as over responsibility. I mean, any other reflections on that?
Well,
Sorry,
no,
please.
I think also that women are the ones that have to start not sending emails on weekends, not putting. No, it's true. I mean, you cannot be available all the time, everywhere. So it has to be us that start not putting emails on weekends unless it's necessary, and not setting meetings at 7 in the evening unless really it's an emergency and necessary. Because otherwise we're just promoting the same culture that men, the same culture that we have in the companies now.
Yeah, although, again, just challenging that a weeny bit, I've heard it a little bit tonight as well, actually, that some women prefer to do a couple of hours of work after the kids have gone to bed, because you get really clear free time, and that works for some women. So, it's...
Sure, but when you're the manager and you send emails, you are actually sending the wrong message. If you send them emails on Saturday, maybe people are expecting or think that you are expecting to get the response,
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Just keep them in your box and send them Monday morning at 8 in the morning. If it's not really very necessary to send them on Saturday or something like that. Okay, you can work on Saturday, but don't send the wrong messages.
That's a good tip. Okay, so biggest frustrations then, as working mums. Let's do the working mum thing. Biggest frustration. Yours is obviously having to respond to emails at the weekend, I'm guessing.
Yes, the biggest, sometimes you feel really, you feel guilty for not being there all the time, okay? I don't know, when kids are sick or mine are already quite, are older, but when they were younger and you leave your kids sick or you have someone else taking them to the doctor or something like that, you really feel guilty. But if they are in good hands, you don't really have to feel so guilty. They are all right, they grow up and they are fine. So you become an expert in logistics. That's true.
Yes, that's what I say. It's a military operation, logistical planning. Yeah. Sylvia, what's your biggest frustration?
I feel the same frustration, but with my kids, because I can't be there all the time. For instance, today, because I have also other responsibilities, and also with my work and my job, because sometimes I cannot be there either. For instance, I have said no to 2 conferences this week because I can't be there all the time. I say it in the radio everywhere. No, I'm with my kids. I have to do it because otherwise I will be lying. So this wouldn't be my flag. And I do feel guilty because I can't be with them and because I can't do all the work I would like to. But I need to balance.
Isabel?
Well, my biggest frustration is when I talk to women who are managers, who are in middle management, women with talent, women with excellent appraisals in their performance, who I try to talk to them so that they would continue with their careers, normally in their 30s and 40s and early 40s, and they say, no, I am not going to do it. And I try and get them to have the determination and the ambition. And the reason why they say no is the phrase that they keep on repeating is, it is not worth it. And I feel so frustrated every time I hear this. And I'm thinking, young people like you saying, it is not worth it. No me compensa. That's what they say. It is not worth it. And I feel such frustration to today, 2014, listening to it is not worth it.
And why do you think more guys think it is worth it?
Because it's in their, they're expected to be breadwinners, they're expected to have a professional career, they're expected to be successful, and for women, no, it isn't that way. Obviously, they have too much pressure, probably from themselves, from their environment, from their families, from their in-laws, you know, it's it all adds up. And then also there's also something about the structure of our salaries is getting flatter and flatter. So they say, well, I'm not going to be paid more or slightly more only, and I'm going to have to travel more, and I'm going to have more responsibility. And what they don't realize is that it's only a stepping stone. You do that, and then you get onto the next one. So, but you have to do that. You have to get up the ladder. You have to get onto that. You have to do that step to get onto the next step.
Yeah.
And I find, you know, they've got the education, they've got the talent, they've got the skills, they're lacking determination and guts to do it. That's my frustration.
See, yes, question.
I have one question, and it's just the opposite. Why is it worth it?
Why is it worth
Why
it?
it is not worth it?
Well, you answer me. Why is it not worth it for you?
Well, I'm currently trying to decide if it's worth it.
Well, I'll mentor you if you like.
Let's just grab the microphone. Grab the microphone so people at the back.
I perfectly know why it is not worth it. All the things that you have explained. But honestly, I have doubts why it is worth it. So I want to know from you that it seems that you have already taken that decision. Why
I think it is definitely worth it for the following reasons. The first thing is you're going to be much more in control if you're a director than if you're a manager. So being a manager, you do all the work and get half the credit. Being a director, you do all the work and you get all the credit, number one. Second, it opens up many more opportunities to meet much more interesting people and to really be in touch with people that are intellectually and more intelligent, and that is always, instead of being at your own level, you know, you always try and be surrounded by people that are more sort of thought-provoking and that you can progress personally and in your professional. You'll earn more money. Even if you don't earn more money in the next step, you'll earn more money in the following step. With more money, you can do more things and you can be more in control. And you get recognition, acknowledgement, and the other,
How about
stay
extra
where you
time?
are. Sorry?
You are not mentioning extra time. You never get that.
Mentioning
Extra time?
extra time. You work long hours anyway, don't you?
Sorry?
You work long hours today, and you're going to work the same long hours further on.
Anna, what do you? It's worth it for you right now.
Absolutely.
You're still striving. Why is it worth it for you?
Well, there's something really interesting that is up to now, all the efforts I've done during my professional career. I've been working in the industry for 12 years, and I've been trying to educate myself and to be as professional as possible. And up to now, it's completely worthy, and I completely agree with something that Isabel said. It's so interesting, the people. The more you go up, the more people you will know, the more experiences, the more interesting it is. And of course, you have to make an effort, but it is completely rewarded. And for me, from a personal point of view, whenever I hear, well done, good job, wow, it's like adrenaline's going up, completely going up. So
it's rewarding. It's rewarding in other ways.
It's completely rewarding.
I agree completely with what you've said, and I would add up one thing, and it's commitment. When your boss or whoever tells you to take on more responsibility, someone that has trusted on you, commitment also plays a role. And maybe, you have doubts how many hours you will put on it and so on, but commitment is also important.
For me, it's about self-development. You get yourself at 100%. So you can be yourself.
And I'm going to add some different things here, because I found my jobs have got more interesting the more senior I've got. Unquestionably, you get to I get to meet some amazing people. I go all around the world and I meet amazing people, and that's fantastically stimulating. I get to work with them. There is another point, which is around, if you look at psychological studies of stress, the more senior you are, the more control you have, and you are less likely to have stress, suffer from stress, at the top of an organisation than at the bottom. So that may sound a very perverse thing to say, but stress actually declines at the top versus elsewhere because of control. Much stress comes from lack of control, and the more senior you are, the easier it is to dictate when you arrive, when you leave, when you fly, who you meet. You get all of that. I think the final thing is that the more senior you are, the easier it is to make a difference to other people, the more impact you have. And as I've said already a couple of times, I don't like generalizations about men and women because to my mind, there are more differences between men and women than there are between the average of women and the average of men. But one thing where there is a slight difference between men and women, particularly now at this point in history, is this desire to be seen to be doing something for the benefit of ... fill in the gaps, but society at large or other women or minority groups, which is why they're not applying to financial services in very big numbers at the moment, because financial services is seen as a bit of a negative place to be in some respects. But you have that ability to make a difference if you are more senior than if you're not. So there's a bunch of reasons out there. I don't know if we've convinced you, but we've given it a go.
I'm still missing one. That at least for me, I would rather decide to go forward if I would be able to manage my own time. And I'm not listening to you saying that.
She just said it. I did say that. I said that. You have much more control about when you arrive, when you leave. You have much more control. You still have to be committed, but I manage my own time. I do work pretty hard, I have to say. Do we have any other questions? Yes, here at the front. Can we get the microphone here at the front?
This is Silvia Castaño. I work in the financial sector. I'm head of global portfolios at BNP Paribas. So I am in middle management. My question is, if you decide to change and to go through middle management to top management, what can we do? Because when I look in the bank or in the sector, it's very difficult. I only see men. So could you advise how to do that? Maybe it's a question to change the way to do things, or is more to change the sector, or what is the solution?
Okay, who wants to take that one?
I can take it. My advice would be to get good mentors. Okay, you need the men support. If you get them to support you, you will get it. So make them help you. Let them do it. Become their friend.
And you also have to show that you want more and that you want to get on with more responsibilities.
That's the first thing for me. You have to say it.
You have to say it.
You have to actually articulate it. Yeah. You have to go to the people that make the decisions to say, I think I can do more. I think I'm capable of doing more. And you have to actually articulate and express it. See what your strong points are, but also see what your weak ones are, and try and do maybe some education to try and correct the weak ones. Have some goals, short term, 6 months, a year. To if you're not strong enough, I don't know, if you're if you need M&A or if you need whatever, or more English or French, I don't know, to actually plan short term and medium term to try and get onto the next step.
And this point about saying that you want it, desperately important, because if people, this is one of the areas where the environment can mitigate against women, because there's a tendency for people to make assumptions about women. Oh, she's got small kids, she won't want to move, or it's probably not quite right for her now, her husband's working, she wouldn't want that job. And they don't always realise they're making those assumptions. But I had a concrete example last week of a woman, and I won't say which country she's from, I won't say who she is, she does have a family. She came to me and said, I want a bigger job, and I'm quite happy to move continent to get it, if that's a possibility. And so I've now transmitted that. She felt safe saying it to me. I've now transmitted that on to the right people internally. I don't know if she'll get a bigger job or not, But now she's on everybody's radar. And that's where the difference between mentorship and sponsorship is. Mentorship is about managing you and the environment. Sponsorship is really important. Sponsorship is where you've got somebody senior in the organisation who says, X, Y, or Z, she'll be perfect for that job. And that's a really important thing to try. Some companies, and BNP may even have it, I don't know, but some companies do have formal mechanisms now where they do buddy up high potential people with somebody more senior in the organisation. Find out if they've got a programme and hook into it if they do. Another question there.
Yes, thank you for your...
just wait for the microphone just so people at the back can hear you.
Thank you for your comments, very, very interesting, all of them. I've got a question. You've said at the beginning of the presentation, and it is true that only a few women are really in the top positions of the companies, and from your experience and maybe from some of the studies you've done about it, do you think we have the best mirrors or the best examples there for the rest of the women? I mean, because sometimes in my impression, sometimes we are strong in the way for other women, just in the way we send messages, as you said before, the way we work with men, the way we behave. I remember in one of the presentations you made months ago that sometimes it is good to remember that you are a woman and you must behave as a woman. I don't know. How are those women there? I mean...
So are our women, the women that are already there, are they good enough role models?
Yes, really.
Who wants to take that?
Do you have a role model in your company?
Yes. Well, I have to say that I've never made a lot of difference between men and women at work. They are just my peers, you know. I work with them, and it doesn't matter for me whether they're men or women. What I have to tell you is that it's true that in Bank Inter now we have a CEO that is a woman, and in the steering committee there is parity. There is half women, half men. So this is probably unique in a financial institution. And actually the roles in finance and capital markets that are normally more men's fields, are actually taken on by women. So it's not only marketing and the typical areas where women are represented. Well, it's not, as I've mentioned, I think they're very good role models. They are not different from men, and this is what is important, I think. They are not women and they're not men. She's just a very good CEO, that's it. But I don't look at her as a woman, because I think that would be wrong. I mean, she's just doing her job and she's doing it perfectly. I mean, that's the point.
Anyone else want to add? No? I mean, I think it's hard, there's a saying, and it's hard to be what you cannot see. So I think there is role models play in a very, very important part, but it goes back to the media. It goes back to
it's more media,
how
you
know, if you look at Angela Merkel, if you look at Christine Lagarde, if you look at Hillary Clinton, what they've managed to do is transcend this being stereotyped, and they've done it by being competent and rational and good over a very, very long period of time. And what we need to do is see that expand to a broader depth and mix. But you know, I feel we've come some way, but there's a long distance to still be travelled.
I think
I think we are scrutinised more than men
agree.
At the top. So and we are very critical, aren't we? Spanish people are very critical, probably more critical than other Europeans, and we are scrutinised women because there's fewer women at the top. So that also puts a spotlight on the ones there. I mean, we all have names in our head, especially in politics. Especially in politics, we're saying, oh no, you know. So that does happen.
Okay, another question.
Mine is a comment, not a question. I'm a headhunter. I work for Norman Broadbent, and obviously we interview women as well as men and consider them for positions. And women tend to feel that they have to be perfect at everything. They have to do everything perfectly, and they have to be totally ready for a new role to take it on. So they will often say, oh, I'm not quite ready for that, I haven't done this or I haven't done that. Whereas with a man, they will be given an opportunity and they will say yes and then they will figure out how to do it. So I think we have to be a bit braver and take a leap.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it.
As a manager, and I've done this quite recently with one of our recent appointments on the GMB, our Group Management Board, where I proposed somebody for something. I then found to my horror, when the announcement didn't go out, that she'd said no. I went back to her, took her into a room and gave her a big kicking and told her to go and say yes. At which point she said, "Oh, I didn't realise it was your suggestion. Okay, yes, I'll do it." So it's really interesting. As a manager, you can adjust for that a little bit. I didn't really give her a kicking, obviously not. But it was to encourage people to encourage her not to be frightened. She was way more than qualified to do it. So I think that is something that as managers we can have a bit of an effect on. We're almost out of time. Do we have any last burning questions? No, you really do want that drink, and you've done terribly well. You've asked all those questions, so you're going to be allowed to get one. I wanted just to end with asking all of our wonderful panellists one piece of advice that they would give to their younger selves today as hopefully a little takeaway for each of you. And I'm going to start maybe with Anna. What would you say?
Well, according to my experience, I think it is a question of being brave. As you said, of course, we are. I always think to myself when I have fear many times, but I think that if the rest of the world can do it, why cannot do it? I'm not more talented, but neither less talented. I think if I work on it, I can succeed. So in my case, being brave and being willing, instead of saying no, I try to say yes most of the times. And I've learned a lot and hope to keep on learning.
Isabel?
I would encourage all of you to make yourselves visible. Networking and visibility are the two things that I would encourage all of you to do.
Sylvia?
Passion explains 30% of success. This is academic research. So I will say wit and passion.
Wit?
Yeah.
Humor. Interesting. I like that. Gloria?
And I would say also that we cannot forget that in progressing in a company, there is an element of luck. Whenever there is an opportunity, get it. Just get it.
Go for it.
Go for it.
Well, there we go. There's a fantastic note on which to end. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed for your attention. And let's go and have a little refreshment. Thank you.
Just a few words from the couple of men in the room. First of all, thank you. Well, I just don't want to be in the middle. As a man, yeah, well, I'll be here. Okay, Elena, I'll be here. Please fill in the encuestas that we have and leave them in the chairs, and that would be very appreciated. And well, thank you all for coming over, for your sincerity, transparency, and honesty. Thank you all for coming and sharing with us all your fears and your thoughts. I'm sorry I'm not George Clooney. So I'm really sorry for that. I won't be very controversial today because I'm fan number one of women. It's by coincidence that I'm here because I worked for Aberdeen and come back, but I'm fan number one of women. All my best men in my wedding were my aunties instead of my uncles, and I come from a large family of 60 cousins, 40 aunties and uncles. And in my case, only the women were my best men, and the uncles were seeing how they were best women. Last week I got to know that I would be even better fan of women because I will have my third daughter. So it will be Sofia, Alejandra, and the next one, so third daughter. And a firm believer also of the Spanish saying, behind, and I'm sure that's globally, behind a good man, there's always a better woman. And a firm believer of diversity, couples, of success between couples, of success of great teams, and all those good men like Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton became Prime Minister or President of the United States probably because of Hillary, and now she's there, no? So also a firm believer of today's world is yours, but also that mixed diversity and democratic decisions are always a good path for success. So be passionate, brave, and make it happen. Thank you for coming. We will invite you for a drink upstairs.